Hi, this is David Brown with the Make Living Pleasurable Show. I'm really happy to welcome you today with a special guest, Nikki Owen, who is founder of the Healing Hub. Welcome, Nikki.
Hello, David.
So let me do a little introduction here for you, if I may, to share your wonderful world and what you're doing here. It's amazing. So Nikki recovered from quite a major trauma in her late teens, and consequent to that, she researched a lot about how to deal with living an active and healthy life in spite having such a trauma occur in your life. And so for the last 3 decades, she's been helping thousands of people with the beating stress and optimizing their well-being, their full potential. Her groundbreaking methods are used as part of an app that she has, as part of her speaking, through the many books she's written, 5 books over the last years, including international bestseller. She created the Healing Hub, which includes an app that we'll talk about a little bit later that helps you really get to your leading edge, live a powerful life, and that's very transformational. Her therapeutic processes are very much inspired by quantum mechanics, neuroscience, cellular biology, and energy-focused interventions. I'm really happy to have Nikki on the show today because we're going to be talking about pleasures in releasing your anxiety. Pleasures, plural. So thank you for being here with me, Nikki. I'm really excited for us to have this conversation. We've been both, I believe, looking forward to this for a while.
We've had a few hiccups, haven't we? A few false starts, a few technology issues that have been really calling us to really walk our talk, I guess, and find even when we're going through some technology issues that you've still got to find the pleasure and have a sense of humor. And I'd love to share at some point in the interview why that's so vital to live a happier, calmer life, really.
So, what's this whole thing about stress? Why are we so fixated on stress these days?
Well, it's a massive problem. I don't know if you can remember that last year we had, and are still having to a greater or lesser extent, a global pandemic, and people, their stress levels are going through the roof. Within a business context, something like 4 out of 5 employees are actually feeling stressed, and over half of workplace absenteeism is down to stress-related issues. And it can manifest itself in so many different ways, from being really lethargic, having no energy, to being quite manic with your energy levels, being really frustrated and angry, in fear all the time, not being able to sleep, having a real sense of brain fog, overwhelm, depression, feeling that you just can't live your life as you want to live your life. And it's something that, even if it's not affecting you right now, it will have affected you in your past, and there will be moments in your future where it's going to affect you. So, for me, it's always been this big question. What is it that I can do to help release my own stress really quickly when I'm aware that I'm feeling stressed? And how can I then help other people to do the same? And what's simple? What can we do instantly that, anyone can do? So that's really driven, I suppose, my life's work, which has spanned over 3 decades now.
So you're like perfectly on the right timing of the wave, as we say, during this past past period. Yeah, really. I can sense that I myself have experienced some of the symptoms that you've talked about, and obviously speaking with other people, one way or another, it seems like everyone is experiencing that that stress. And I guess the question is, what is everyone doing to be able to help themselves in their own potentially unique way that allows them to release and unblock that and kind of get back to being themselves. And what has worked best for you in this last period, personally, to get through this?
I've spent years looking at techniques and tools that can help people quickly, because I think when you're feeling stressed, your body is full of adrenaline and cortisol. So the idea of being able to just sit down and calm the mind and meditate is a bit like asking somebody to neck back a can of Red Bull and then have a good night's sleep. You know, our body is overstimulated. So, you know, we can't just clear the mind and calm down, because it's just not possible when we're in that kind of fight or flight response. So we need to find a way to release the stress that we're feeling in the moment within our bodies. And strangely enough, it's something that we were born to do. I don't know if you've ever noticed young kids that when they're really frustrated or they're upset, they have a real kind of temper tantrum and they scream and they pummel their wrists and they're really like angry and scream and shout. They go red in the face. And then within a couple of minutes, they're quite calm. And it's like, you know, that mood is gone. And if you look in the animal kingdom, all mammals have this ability to release their own stress, you know, or their own adrenaline and cortisol in the form of a neurogenic tremor where they shake uncontrollably. So if we can have that temper tantrum, if we can release in a way that's appropriate, so obviously, you know, in the middle of, you know, kind of, and you know, in the middle of a high street as an adult having a temper tantrum wouldn't probably be that appropriate. But there are ways to release that pent-up emotion that can work really, really quickly. And that's what I'm really curious about.
Yeah. And gosh, and there's so much there. Some of the stuff that you've been doing is very sensorial, it seems, related to, you know, listening and sounds, obviously the sensations and the feeling of breathing, different kinds of breathing, you know, movement stuff. It feels like a lot is really related to the body more than, you know, the feeling the body and the physical release and sort of the physiological kind of taking care of, more than it is kind of a mental mindset or thinking thing. Does that make sense?
Well, it's pretty pointless just talking about stress, because the issue isn't immediately resolved with the thinking, especially when you're feeling very stressed, very anxious, very in overwhelm, and someone tells you to calm down and think clearly. You know, you just want to punch their lights out, in all honesty. So the idea of being able to come up with ways to think your way out of stress, to me, is just never going to happen, because that, you know, depends on willpower, because we hold stress in the body. So when the moment you're born, you're in this hypnagogic state. So you're highly suggestible, and you've just been born in this beautiful new world, and you need your senses to interact with the world, and you need to learn a set of behaviors. And so for the first 6 years of our life, as we're you know, noticing and responding to everything that's going on around us, we learn how to deal with our emotions. And we have a very healthy way of dealing with it when we're younger, that we express how we feel in the moment. And that's wonderful, whether it's joy and you see babies, or the sound of children laughing is just so infectious, or they're upset and they're crying and they want a hug. Whatever it is, they express themselves. But what happens as we get older, we start to become a little bit too conscious, and we have this belief that maybe it's not appropriate or it's not safe for us to express how we feel. So what we do instead, we either consciously push those emotions down, and it might be like when you were a little boy, you might have fallen over and your dad might have said to you, come on, David, kind of, don't cry, man up, be a big boy. Big boys don't cry. And there might have been a little belief that started to take shape around big boys don't cry. And so any time you felt emotion as you were getting older and you wanted to express that hurt or express that pain, you just push down. So over the years, what's happened with many of us, we've created layers and layers and layers of suppressed and buried pent-up emotion that is like a pressure cooker. So when you've got something like COVID, which it's normal and natural to feel anxious, but what it did in many people, it actually triggered a lifetime's worth of fear and anxiety. And so it all erupted like a big volcano, making it overwhelming. It's when we felt maybe we didn't have any control over our emotions. And it's because we weren't just dealing with what's going on right now. We're dealing with what has happened all through our life that we've never actually processed. And that can be incredibly terrifying because we can't recognize our own reactions to things. So you can't deal with stress just by saying, oh, I need to get calmer. Let's dab on a bit of incense and lay down and do a nice little meditation. That's way too superficial. We have to be prepared to release the past baggage that we've accumulated over the years in a way that's relatively comfortable.
So
I don't know if that makes sense.
So it sounds like right now this period that we're going through in the world is actually an opportunity if we look at it that way. To heal ourselves and
everything is an opportunity, isn't it? So whenever I think we experience something that we don't like or is difficult or it's a challenge, first of all, we learn so much about ourselves. We grow, we expand. And I think in experiencing how we don't want to feel, it creates this desire to feel better, to have more pleasure rather than pain in our life. And that feels a really important motivation. So when people can start to really connect with the fact that I don't want to feel like this, and it is possible to create change in the moment, then people can just naturally allow more calm, more happiness, feeling more in flow, to just be more present in their day-to-day life.
So then for you, what is the relationship between pleasure and the releasing of your anxieties?
So I believe that at our core, at our fundamental, the truth of who we really are, we are pure love. And when we can access that state of pure love, of bliss, it's just, there's no better feeling from it. And it's not something that we can get in such a profound way from anything that happens around us. You know, we have a perception sometimes that if I create this change in my life and this partner responds in a certain way to me, I'll feel happier. Or if I eat this certain food, I'll feel more pleasure. Actually, we can access that state of pure bliss at any time we want, because this is who we are. We're made of bliss. We're made from pleasure. And so the work that is ahead of us, the journey through the adventure of what we call our life is a journey of just clearing away the obscurations, the walls, the dust, the baggage, the anything that stops us from connecting to our truth. And that's what I've always been driven, to do in my life. That, that when, in my trauma, in my teens, when I was 18, I was described as a maniacal psychopath and incurably insane. And I was, incarcerated in prison, in solitary confinement, and held in darkness. And at that moment, I hated myself. I felt like a monster. I was so violent. I was so full of hatred. So if you'd have ever said to me that we're love inside, that I wouldn't have believed you. And I think even after that trauma had passed and I was released from prison and I got my life together through the discovery of different techniques, the biggest challenge was believing that I really am a lovely person and that I'm kind and I'm worthy and I've got something important to say. And that has been such a journey, David, because it's hard work to be really honest with yourself, because there are aspects, we judge ourselves so much. And in that judgment, we immediately take away any pleasure of who we are. And actually, we are all exquisitely perfect, just as we are. But we don't believe that. We might, say that as a little cliched expression. But I wanted people to feel that at their core, because when you've connected to that exquisite sense of bliss, then you always remember who you are. So it doesn't matter what crap you go through in life. That crap, you always remember, it's not me. This time will pass. And so I've been obsessed with this, I suppose, pursuit of pleasure, because that's who we really are.
Yeah, and it's such an extraordinary story of your life, Nikki. I just want to honor that and invite everyone to learn a little bit more about you and that. And we'll talk a little bit later about the traumatic experience you went through. Two questions come to me for there. One is, for people who've maybe not gone through something as, quote unquote, traumatic as you've experienced, but are still feeling quite a bit of anxiety in their life, and maybe they're saying to themselves, well, this is kind of usual stress. This is kind of just the way it is. But since they haven't had something so challenging, so life-changing, that they're living with sort of a low-grade stress that's kind of deadening them to their sense of feeling alive and their ability to live from a place of pleasure.
I think that's really true. We've all got issues, and we've all got issues that we haven't processed, that we're holding in our body. But people have to be ready. If, you can't change anyone. I married two men thinking they were almost perfect, but with a bit of fine tuning from me, they'd be great. And 2 divorces later, I realised you can't change anyone. So you have to just accept people at where they're at. So, you don't have to go through extreme trauma to feel stress. People can go through sometimes something that might be perceived as quite small, but it might trigger a reaction of something that was not processed in their early childhood. So, for example, it could have been that when you were a little girl, you stood up when you were 4 years old in nursery, all excited, and everybody laughed at you. And you had this belief that no one would ever take you seriously. And you hold that in your body. and it gets triggered every time you go to speak. Or maybe you came home from school one day and you said, Mum, I got 9 out of 10 for spelling. And your mum says, oh, why? What was the one you got wrong? And you have this belief, I need to be perfect to be loved. All of that limiting perception of belief that is formed as children, because we're only children, and so we've got very limited perceptions of things. They shape so much about what we believe as adults, and that shaping is held in our physical body. So, when you look at people, David, you can see that sometimes people are they're holding a lot of burden on their shoulders, or they're trying to be fiercely brave and they're push ahead regardless of the hurt they're feeling. So their head's protruding in front of their body. Or you might find they're trying to be very laid back about everything. They're emotionally disconnected, so their upper body sways back. And every emotion that we try to keep buried, whether that's unconscious or conscious, creates a tightness in your body. And so by the time you get to a certain age, you're walking around with a lot of tightness in your body. And whether you're aware of it or not, everyone can benefit from releasing a bit of tightness in their body. That's why they have yin yoga and stretching. That's why they say when you go to the gym, you need to stretch the muscles afterwards. Otherwise, everything contracts. And if your body is contracting, if your musculature is contracting, so does your thinking. Everything contracts, everything goes inwards. And instead of being in this playful, expansive, just crazy, happy vibe place, everything's like, ooh, you're like this, just from a metaphoric point of view. So you don't need to go through deep problems to actually feel that you would benefit from the techniques that I believe can help anyone to feel better within just 5 minutes, within a few minutes.
Yeah.
So I truly believe that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing the work I do.
Yeah, I love that response. It made me think about me doing my stretching this morning. I'm not very supple, so I need to definitely, and I want to do more stretching, and I can feel the release that it gives me, this sort of sense of liberty, and it like gives me more expansiveness within. It's kind of hard to describe, but the sense of like, it opens up and allows me to feel kind of more in the space, and versus being not doing that. I notice when I don't do that type of exercise and just working the muscles, for example, or something, that you don't get the sort of range of motion, literally range of emotion in your experience.
Exactly.
So that's
all the range of perception. So it's a bit like putting blinkers on. The mind body is totally interconnected. So if your body is tight, generally speaking, your thinking will be tight. And actually, one of the interesting things from a neuroscience perspective is that when we have a thought, the thought releases an electrical signal, which releases neurotransmitters that bind onto another neuron, and therefore it creates a circuit. So the more times we have the same thought, the stronger the neural circuit, so the easier it becomes to have the same thought. That's why we're creatures of habit. So when we're feeling stressed, and we're feeling stress for maybe a bit of time, then our thinking is tighter, it becomes more negative, and we start to create negative neural circuits in the brain, so that when that stress has passed, the stress still shows in our body, and it's still showing up in our neural circuitry. So to really clear stress, regardless of whether the cause of stress is still present or not, we need to release it from the body, and we need to release it and start to shift and change the neural circuitry. Otherwise, we are just going to create a perpetuating stress cycle that means we're always going to be more susceptible to stress.
Yeah, fascinating. And, I've always had a challenge to remember my early childhood, as you were talking about earlier. From 1 to 7 years old, I can't say I really have that many conscious memories. And I don't think I'm the only one that has that challenge, but some people seem to remember better than others. And even if something, I guess everyone has a different response to some sort of trauma, big, small, giant that you were talking about younger, but how is one to even be aware, find out, or,
Well, this is a really interesting question because, first of all, your unconscious mind can go back to any moment from the moment you were held in the womb. You can go back to anything. That's the power of your unconscious mind. The unconscious mind can absorb 2 to 10 million bits of information every moment through the physical senses, but consciously we're really restricted. We can only process about 40 bits. So it's no wonder that the majority of individuals can't remember stuff from their childhood. And so there's no point trying to figure it out, because again, you're trying to resolve things by using analysis and thinking and trying to understand something. And what I realize is actually, why don't we just kind of bypass the conscious mind, go straight in to the feelings in the body? Why don't we kind of activate and soften the traumas that people are holding in their body? It doesn't really matter what those traumas are. We just want to get it out. It's a bit like if you're, it's a bit like squeezing a spot. It's such a bad, horrible example. But, if you've got, you've got all this pus coming out, and when you squeeze a spot, then it can start to heal. But we've all got this toxicity in terms of negative emotion that is festering away, but it doesn't really matter what triggered it. It's almost irrelevant. We just want the feeling to go so we can feel more pleasure, more happiness, more joy in the moment right now. And that's why, in a way, I'm not a big fan of talk therapy, because talk therapy, the more you talk about why things were a problem, for me, they just make the problem even bigger and give me even more of a reason why I'm so screwed up in the first place and why it's so hard to deal with it, if that makes sense. It just seems such hard work, David.
Yeah.
And I know that because I was sent from psychotherapists, psychiatrists, when I was younger, and nothing worked because it was all so, in the head, in the thinking and the thoughts. Let's be honest about our thoughts. Our thoughts are a little bit volatile and a bit mad and neurotic. If we were to see a transcript of the way we think, it's great, but it's true, isn't it?
That would be crazy.
Something like 80 to 90% of the thoughts that you think are negative, and for most people, and also they're repetitive. So we're going to be, unless we do something, even if you're in a reasonably good place right now and you just don't do anything to work on yourself, and I guess everyone watching you is very open to working on themselves, and that's why they're here, because we want to grow, we want to improve. But if you didn't make any changes in your life, can you imagine, having the same thinking in the next 10 years? How boring that would be. Imagine if you had the same thinking that you have from childhood. Well, lots of us do. Lots of us do. Isn't that ridiculous? That we're carrying with us the thoughts from when we were 9 and 10 years old, and we wonder why our lives aren't rich and satisfying and rewarding.
Yeah, that's great. This is a good segue because we talked about having an experience with you, some sort of exercise or whatever we want to call it here in real time.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
So
yeah.
some people will be listening to this only in audio, and so if we can just keep in mind as we go through this. And probably if you're driving or all these kinds of things, you may want to pull aside for a moment or hit pause or come back to this.
Yes, you just be, yes. So it's, if you're not safe, so if you're driving or, it's not a good thing to just do what I'm about to do. So I'm going to take you through the, if you like, my powerful stress busting technique that's my favorite, that I still do every day and that I've taught to thousands and thousands of people. And the important thing is that you embrace this with an open mind and you notice how you feel. So just for a moment, just take a moment, close your eyes if that feels easier, and just take a deep breath in through the nose and just breathe out through the mouth. And just allow your awareness to just scan your body. And just notice how your body feels without any judgment. Just observe and notice. And as you allow your attention to flow inwards, you may become aware of the parts of your body that are feeling tighter than others. You may become aware of parts of your body that feel tense or a bit achy. So just notice these parts and just hold that and mark it and think, right, this is how I feel right now. And then just, David, open your eyes. So the first thing I'm going to invite you to do is we're going to do some open mouth breath work. And the purpose of doing the open mouth breath work is to absorb vast quantities of oxygen into our bloodstream that is going to shift our physiology. And it's almost like a laser beam. It's going to go looking for any old unprocessed emotions that have become stuck or frozen. And it's going to find those and it's going to start softening them. So I want you to start with an open mouth. So you're going to breathe in and out through the mouth. Take 2 fingers like so. So just hold up 2 fingers and then just pop them in your mouth. That's how wide and open your mouth needs to be. So it's just a guide for people. So if you stick 2 fingers in your mouth, that tells you that's how open. And we're just going to take 5 deep breaths. And as you breathe in, David, I want you to push out your stomach. So inflate your stomach on the inhale. Are you ready? Let's go for it. Breathing in. Breathe in. Breathing in and inflate the stomach and out. 2 more, breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. And how did that feel, David? Just tell me what you're feeling. Just describe the sensation right now.
A little bit lightheaded, a little buzzing. A sense of my lungs opening up.
Good. So a couple of things just to comment about what I noticed with you when you were doing it. First of all, it's very normal to get the lightheadedness because we're not used to breathing in that way. And there's been a lot of research that underpins this method, which is we can make available to people if they're curious. So this open mouth breath work, when you first start doing it, will make you feel a bit lightheaded, a bit dizzy, which is why we always need to do it when we're sat down or laying down. And the next thing is that, did you notice that actually your lungs were working quite well, but there was almost like a tightness in the lungs. We couldn't get the breath into the stomach very easily, because that to me shows that you're still holding on to some old stuff that's constricting you around the chest area. So the next step of this practice, so we always start with some open mouth breathing, and then I'm going to invite you to take a deep breath and hold your breath for as long as feels comfortable. So this time we'll do 3 breaths, and then I'll ask you to hold your breath. And while you're holding your breath, I'll explain why we do the breath hold. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So, yeah, check with the fingers. And we're doing 3 breaths. Deeply in and out. Just relax those shoulders a bit. Deeply in and out through the mouth. That's it. That's better, David. And deeply in. Push out the belly. That's better. And out. And now take a deep breath in and hold your breath with your mouth closed for as long as feels comfortable. Relax your shoulders. And the important thing about the breath hold is you only hold for as long as feels comfortable. And that will vary from person to person. If you're very stressed, you'll only be able to hold your breath for 20 seconds. If you're really calm and you're in peak shape, you might hold your breath for minutes. Either way, listen to your body. And the breath hold transitions your nervous system into the parasympathetic, which is where we activate the body's natural ability to heal, because we enter what we call a theta, or a healing frequency. You might notice you feel a bit kind of calm and very zen in this moment. And now just release, just breathe normally. And now I want you to lift up your fists in front of you, because we're now doing step 3, which is the primal releasing. And imagine that you're pummeling a boxing ball incredibly fast and with massive amount of intensity. So you just take a deep breath in and you're going to breathe normally as you pummel, and you're going to release fast, really pummel. Yes, come on, David, faster. And if you are on your own and you can do this, you can go relax. Yes. Yes. Now, first of all, notice how happy you feel. Can you feel the happiness? It's like, amazing. Wow. And so just notice, are you feeling any tingling in your body?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. This is because we've started to stimulate, we've unblocked the blockages that are stopping our life force energy, our chi energy, our ki, our pranic energy from flowing through our body. So you can actually feel tingling. And then the 4th step in the practice that I teach is where people can just lie there. And I use a blend of hypnotic affirmations with neuroscience inspired technology, which includes panning 8D, and which is very surround sound and very immersive. So at this point, I start to condition people so that their neural circuits that support and empower them start to become strengthened. So that's the kind of a bit of a taster on the technique. So just notice how you feel now.
Yeah, I feel kind of warm. I mean, this is just the physical kind of thing. And there's my shoulders, when we started, it was where I felt the tightness in my shoulders was really probably the main, maybe a little bit here. That's what you're saying.
Yes.
But it feels kind of loosened up now. But what an exhilarating moment. And what just comes to me is always this idea that I should speak for myself perhaps, there seems to be a conventional way of looking of what actually helps us to reach a state of releasing our anxieties and pleasure and these types of things. And that there's such an emphasis today on using thinking, as we were talking about, to do that, when there are so many other modalities that are related to the body and releasing through our natural mechanisms that are available to us at every moment. They're always with us. And yet it doesn't seem like a lot of people use such practices, and yet they're so simple, not necessarily easy to remember and to get into discipline.
They are simple, David. They are simple, and
powerful.
The strange thing is that we were born with everything we need to deal with anything. That's the crazy thing.
Yeah.
So in a way, it's just learning to tune into the body.
Yeah.
But when we feel stressed, when we're carrying a lot of baggage, a lot of old baggage, because it hurts for us to access our heart, it hurts for us to feel, then we almost give ourselves like a giant anesthetic, so we don't feel anything. We almost become a bit numb, and so we tend to try and figure out solutions to problems in our head, in our thoughts, and the answer is always in how we feel. Because I really believe that when we are living our life in a way that's totally aligned to who we are, then it feels good. So I can feel great. Whatever I'm doing, I know that I'm living life in alignment with my true, authentic self. But if I have an experience that doesn't feel good, then I know that it's feedback coming up from my unconscious mind that loves us. Your unconscious mind loves you and wants to protect you. So it's trying to say to you, hey, David, if you're feeling something that doesn't feel blissful or good, or it feels a bit negative, then just listen to it, because every emotion has a message. And if you just notice what you're feeling and you honor it and you acknowledge it, there's no real good or bad. It's just learning, there's something for me to learn here. So what I'm doing, or the particular direction I'm heading in, is not really in alignment with who I am now. And that's important for me to know, because I want to live my life with as much joy and pleasure as I can. So that's why I think that the ability to release old emotion is so important, because it helps us to tune in much more to our guidance, our inner guidance, our intuition, our own bodies, and we're all unique. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it's so powerful. Amazing, Nikki, really amazing. So I wanted to give a moment here for you to share a little bit more about where we can connect with you and experience you more and learn from you and be inspired by you.
So my app is free. It's called The Healing Hub, and it's available in the App Store and Google Play, and people can download the app for free. And there are huge amounts of resources there that are powerful. They're a bit different, and they use a lot of sound therapy and music as well as technology to create change really quickly. And I think that's the most valuable technique I can offer. I've written lots of books, but in all honesty, if people just go and download the free app, they can start to feel better straight away. And that's been my mission in life, is to reduce stress by 50% in the world. So it's quite a big mission. So I think I'm going to be working until I'm on my deathbed, but hopefully the app will continue long after I've gone. And I just want to say to everyone that's just, struggling out there, that's not feeling great, that I honestly want to tell you that you don't have to experience the burden of stress. You don't have to feel like this. You can feel joyful quicker than you realize. And I just urge you to really embrace that belief and just to take action and let go. So
Wonderful. Thank you, Nikki. So I'm going to just ask one more question, and then traditionally on this show, I will let you finish the show for us and share with us what other wisdom you want to share. I guess my question is just, how do you make living pleasurable in your life?
I think it's by making friends with whatever is happening in the given moment. So it's easy to feel pleasure when we are in a beautiful place where we're lying on a beach and the sun is shining and we're eating beautiful food and everything is exquisite and we have the luxury of time. It's easy to feel pleasure. It's a lot more challenging to feel pleasure day to day when stuff happens, as it always does, because we're human beings and part of life is experiencing challenges, barriers, blockages and stress. So it's about finding a way to experience whatever we're experiencing from a place that makes you feel just a little bit better than you're feeling now. I'm not saying that everyone can go through real trauma and think, oh, well, I can see the positive side of it, because that might not be possible. But it's finding a way of looking at things so you focus on what you're learning or what it's teaching you or how it's giving you more clarity or how it's shaping your choices in your own life or how it's teaching you to grow. So that to me is the challenge. This is not about doing one-off things and thinking that that's going to be enough. You have to commit to really supporting yourself and finding pleasure or the best feeling you can find moment by moment. And then before you know it, you're experiencing a life that feels much more graceful, much easier, much more peaceful, much more true.
Splendid. Yeah, just let that land, because that's beautiful. So thank you so much for joining us today here on the Make Living Pleasurable Show, Nikki. This was such a wealthy experience and conversation, of course. I'm going to let you close off the show and share whatever else you would like to share with us today, and then we'll say goodbye to everyone.
Well, I wasn't prepared for this, and as soon as you said that, I thought I need to share the words that have been etched on my heart from my late father. And I want to speak to people that are going through a particularly tough time in their life right now. And I remember when I was in prison and I was writing to my dad and I was saying, Dad, if there's a God, why is God making me go through this? Why? I don't understand why all this bad stuff is happening. And my dad wrote a letter with words that were so powerful that they remain etched on my heart today. And he said, Nick, he said, everything you are going through right now is defining the legacy of the woman you are destined to become. And one day you'll look back on this time and you'll realize all the gifts that you got from this dark time. And so that is my message, really, that whatever you're going through, there is always light at the end of the tunnel, always.
Thanks so much, Nikki, for being here with us. Bye, everybody.